Exposed, the HEARTWRENCHING truth behind my husband's funeral and my children's unexpected choice. Margaret stood in the kitchen, the smell of burnt toast mingling with the remnants of last night's funeral flowers. The wooden table, once cluttered with Tom's tools and children's projects, now felt cold and foreign. The air heavy with grief, she felt cracked and raw, like an unfinished canvas. Behind her, Jack and Emily whispered, the tremor in their voices undeniable. She turned to see their eyes flicker with something that twisted her insides, a mix of resolve and grief. "Mom, we want to start a scholarship in Dad's name," Jack blurted out, his usual bravado stripped down to a boy stripped bare. Each word hit her like a cold wave. A scholarship? How could they think beyond their suffocating sorrow? "Don't you see," she protested weakly, "we can barely afford groceries, let alone give to others." A knot tightened in her throat as memories of Tom's laughter and tireless work echoed in her mind. He had always put others first, never once complaining as he tightened bolts or handed generously to neighbors in need. But now, standing at the edge of a decision, terror coursed through her. Drowning in bills, the very notion of charity felt like a betrayal of their reality. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The idea tumbled in her mind, and she felt her anxieties surge like an unrelenting tide. Could she support them? Would she even know how? Jack's steadfast gaze burned a hole in her defenses. This was a leap from the precipice of grief, and she felt frozen at the edge. Tom was gone, but his legacy was alive in their children, and yet they were all so fragile. The implications twisted and turned in her mind, revealing unspoken fears. Could they really make a difference, or would this only lead to more heartache? What if their intentions shattered beneath the pressure of reality, fracturing the very family they cherished? The community buzzed quietly about Tom's death. The pain, more than a personal loss, became a whispering tide that hinted at an unseen struggle lurking beneath their town's surface. Each day, Margaret felt months older, exhausted from the burdens of grief and responsibility. The pressure coiled tighter, leaving her every breath strained. Amid this chaos, she stumbled upon Tom's secret, the art he had hidden away, canvases filled with untold stories and dreams. Each brushstroke bore a piece of his spirit, left unexpressed beneath the oil-covered surface of his daily grind. Margaret felt the tremors of discovery ripple through her heart. All that Tom had never shown her now beckoned her to step outside her constraints. As she stumbled through this burgeoning fascination, societal divides began to surface. The budget, paved with uncertainty, fueled a relentless cycle of doubt. Each page of the checkbook felt like an exam with no answers. What if the scholarship faltered? Would their family be swallowed whole by their loss? With the day of the first community meeting approaching, Margaret's heart raced, her thoughts in disarray. Could she stand before them, bear the complexities of her family and speak for what Tom might have wanted? Or would this plunge deeper into an abyss of grief that might shatter them all? The final words of the meeting loomed over her like a storm cloud, threatening to strike. What would happen if she lost the strength to hold them together? All she could do was wait, her chest tight with the knowledge that the answer was just as uncertain as the road ahead. Margaret leaned against the counter, her hands clutching the cool ceramic of a coffee mug. She watched the steam curl upward, her mind swirling with the weight of decisions yet to be made. The thought of that scholarship gnawed at her like an uninvited guest, taking root in her subconscious. It was a terrifying concept that morphed from a noble idea to a source of unrelenting dread. Her world had collapsed, leaving splintered memories of Tom and the unceremonious emptiness of their home. But there was a flicker in Jack and Emily's voices, an intrinsic link to their father's boundless heart. They wanted to build a bridge between loss and love, and yet, all she felt was the chasm widening beneath her feet. She moved towards the living room, where Jack and Emily were bent over a hastily drawn outline of their dreams. They spoke fervently, their enthusiasm buoying them above the despair that threatened to drown her. Each word drew her closer to their vision, propelling her into the depths of her own uncertainties. Should she nurture their dream or shield them from potential disappointment? As they discussed the parameters of the scholarship focusing on students interested in the arts, Margaret felt a shift inside her, like a butterfly pushing through the confines of its chrysalis. Tom's hidden canvases were not just remnants of his dreams, they became the backbone of what could be. The thought electrified her. Perhaps she could transform their grief into a legacy, a way to honor Tom while instilling a sense of purpose in her children. Maybe she hesitated, gathering her resolve. Maybe we can start small. Use the art he left us to raise funds. We could host a gallery. Her voice wavered under the potential of the idea. The notion of being vulnerable amidst a community of grief-filled faces terrified her, yet it also sparked an ember of determination within. "Mom, that's brilliant!" Jack exclaimed, his eyes brightening. "Can we sell some of his paintings?" Emily chimed in, her unyielding optimism lifting the weight that had sat heavily on Margaret's chest. This was about more than money, it was a chance to weave their father's story within the fabric of their own futures. But even as enthusiasm bubbled within her, doubts threatened to shred the newfound hope. The prospect of hosting a gallery required organization and planning, both of which felt as elusive as the reality of a life without Tom. Could she pull this off? The concerns began to crowd her mind, stealing the joy that had momentarily flickered to life. The night fell heavily, darkening the windows as shadows filled the corners of her home. Margaret moved to the spare room where Tom had painted, the walls adorned with his works, each telling a story she had never fully understood. As she stood before them, a chilling revelation struck. This was not just a task to undertake. It was a calling waiting to be answered. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. If Tom could pour his soul onto the canvas while battling his demons, then she could surely honor his legacy while confronting her own fears. With a deep breath, she began to jot down ideas, obstacles, and the first critical steps she would need to take. It felt like a rebellion against the grief that threatened to encapsulate her family completely. The dam had broken, urgency fueled her like never before. Yet, a flicker of uncertainty remained. What if they failed? What if the community turned away from them, leaving them more isolated than before? As doubts fluctuated through her mind, a firm resolve anchored her thoughts. It was time to confront the reality of their lives without Tom, to embrace both the shadows and the light he had left behind. Facing the approaching meeting, her heart thrummed with both fear and determination. Margaret's journey had just begun, but the stakes were higher than ever. Could she truly lead her family into a brighter future, or would the remnants of their loss drown them in regret? With the hour closing in, one thing was clear: no matter the outcome, she would rise to this occasion, even if it meant clawing through the remnants of despair to redefine their hopes. The moment of truth lingered just ahead, a storm brewing between the fragile love they held and the uncertain future waiting to unfold. The morning broke with a tentative light, illuminating the remnants of Tom's paintings that hung like sentinels in Margaret's mind. She awoke with purpose, yet the weight of expectation felt heavier than before. The gallery idea had transformed overnight from a mere thought to a looming reality, and what had initially ignited determination in her now threatened to engulf her in dread as she realized the commitment it required. Gathering her resolve, she slid on a pair of worn sneakers and stepped outside. The chill of morning air bit at her skin, forcing her to confront the reality behind the brilliance of the early dawn. Every step she took reverberated with doubt, each crunch of gravel beneath her feet questioning her commitment. Could she really bring forth Tom's legacy to the community? Would it even resonate? She embarked on her morning walk, clinging to the notion that movement might clear her mind. Her route wound through the neighborhood, showcasing houses that brimmed with laughter and life. It was a stark contrast to the silence of her own home. Yesterday, the prospect of hosting a gallery had lit a fire in her. Today, it felt like an unbearable burden. She questioned her abilities to manage the logistics and marketing, to organize a space that honored Tom while dredging up the rawness of grief in front of people they barely knew. She arrived at the park where the trees swayed gently, branches casting flickering shadows against the grass. Sitting on a bench, she observed a group of children painting, children with bright smiles and carefree spirits. Their energetic strokes on canvas mirrored the very essence of Tom's passion. They were creating with no fear of failure, just pure expression, unchained by the burden of expectations. A whisper of courage surged within her. They were her children, too. Jack and Emily held on to their father's spirit fiercely, and she needed to be the champion they deserved. The thought sparked a realization: the gallery planning wouldn't just be about her, it would be about them collectively honoring Tom's passion and legacy. Sitting there, she acknowledged a pressing truth: vulnerability was not a burden, it was a bridge, the very bridge that could lead them from sorrow to understanding. What if she approached the gallery not as a business transaction but as a celebration? Each painting could tell a story, giving voice to their shared experience of love and loss. With newfound resolve coursing through her, Margaret envisioned the room filled with the warmth of light and laughter, not just the mournfulness she feared. Encouraged by her thoughts, she started to sketch a rough outline of the gallery. What if each child could participate? What if they painted their emotions, a tribute to their father and their own journey of acceptance? Energized, she rushed home, heart racing with the potential of new ideas. The atmosphere within the house felt different. Jack and Emily were awake, their eyes lighting up as they noticed their mother's seal. "Mom, are we really going to do this?" Jack asked, cautious yet hopeful. "Yes," Margaret said, her voice steady, free from wavering hesitation. "But this is not just about selling paintings. We're going to honor your father's story. I want you both to help. We can paint together, share memories. We can create a true homage." The children looked at each other, excitement etched on their faces as they nodded enthusiastically. Margaret could feel the shift in energy, the collective spirit rising within them. She had found not only her own purpose but that of her family, a unified front against the despair threatening them. Despite her determination, the undercurrent of fear still lingered. What if they failed to connect with the community? What if they brought their grief upon themselves when confronting others? Yet she understood this was a part of the journey, a necessary confrontation of what loomed ahead. The time had come to face the unresolved tension surrounding Tom's absence and how it shaped their reality. As they began discussing plans, their voices filled the air, weaving thoughts into a tapestry of hope. Margaret felt something shift within her. Perhaps she was not just moving forward, she was piecing together the fragmented parts of her family. A knock at the door interrupted their planning. A delivery man stood with a parcel, an unsent letter from Tom's uncle, buried and forgotten amid their grief. Margaret felt her heart drop as she hesitated, staring at the envelope in disbelief. This unexpected twist held the promise of a revelation that could change everything. What could be waiting inside? With trembling fingers, she took the letter, knowing it might unravel even more of the story they were trying to piece together. Was this the key to understanding Tom's legacy, or yet another challenge to navigate? The possibilities brewed like storm clouds above. Margaret's heart raced, a storm of emotions swirling within her as she turned the envelope over in her hands. The faint scent of aged paper wafted from it, mingled with the lingering essence of Tom, the essence of a man who had become a mere shadow in her life. Hesitation clung to her as she carefully pried open the seal. The children, now perched on the edge of the couch, mirrored her uncertainty, their eyes wide with anticipation. As she unfolded the letter, words danced before her, revealing a voice long silenced. The familiar handwriting felt like a balm for her aching heart, yet each penned line had the power to cut deep. It was not just a letter, it was a window into Tom's thoughts, fears, and most importantly his wishes for her and their children after he was gone. "Mom, what does it say?" Jack's inquiry reverberated in the stillness, pulling her from the haze of memories that tumbled against her mind. She took a breath, pushing back tears. "It's a letter from your dad's uncle," she began, her voice barely a whisper. The realization that Tom had intended for this correspondence to find its way to her struck her like an electric shock, sending tingles through her limbs. "He's revealing things about our family, about his past, things I never knew." Margaret's pulse raced, curiosity entwined with dread. The letter disclosed haunting memories involving family disputes and hopes dashed by losses, and more tellingly, an account of Tom's childhood dreams that echoed his desire to create art. This was more than just information, they were the roots that anchored Tom's passion for painting, a lineage that pulsed through each brushstroke. As she read aloud, she could feel Jack and Emily lean in closer, transfixed. The connection their father had to art was deeper than she had imagined, a part of him woven into each canvas. Yet, as new layers unfolded, an unsettling revelation struck her. Tom had always feared that the world would reject his work. He had held back, cloaked behind a facade of reluctance, and this hesitancy had seeped into their lives, dimming the light of his aspirations. "See," he struggled, Margaret explained, her eyes scanning the lines for clarity. "He never felt good enough to share his work. But now we have the chance to change that. Can we choose to show it?" Emily asked, a spark igniting in her eyes. "Can we be brave for Dad?" Their children's bravery intertwined with their grief, pushing Margaret towards a decision overshadowed by fear, the decision to bare their souls through their art. It wasn't merely a gallery, it was a legacy, a rebellion against the silence that had enveloped them since Tom's passing. "Absolutely, we can," Margaret replied, fueled by a renewed fervor. "Let us channel everything we've read. Let us tell his story through our eyes." That conversation shifted. It became less about the gallery as a structure and more about the emotional journey they would embark upon together. This was a family mission that transcended mere art. It was healing, a journey that could resurrect Tom's lost hopes while anchoring their own identities in love rather than loss. Yet, the lingering question taunted her: would the truth that unfolded from this letter bring them closer to understanding Tom, or would it drive a deeper wedge of hurt from unfulfilled expectations? Behind each word lurked a hidden cost, and as they began to prioritize art over grief, she felt the weight of yet another choice pressing upon them. How would they respond when confronted with the reactions of those who visited the gallery, perhaps laden with their own judgments or expectations? The children's eagerness reinvigorated her, but still, a sliver of doubt gnawed at her insides. Would they truly be brave enough to turn their pain into art? Their father's voice whispered within her, a reminder to confront fears, not shy away. Emerging from the moment, she looked at her children, their faces lit by the possibility of stepping onto this new path, uncertain yet undeniably filled with potential. Margaret tucked the letter into her pocket, a promise intangible yet powerful. She would not shy away from the revelations it held. As they gathered materials for their first collaborative piece, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. What reverberations might this journey incite in the community? As she considered the looming exhibition, the unexpected consequences of vulnerability pushed to the forefront of her mind. The past beckoned them, and with every brushstroke they chose to create, each confrontation grew ever closer. What awaited them on this path of discovery, anchored by love and laden with fear? Margaret stood in the flickering light of their home studio, surrounded by canvases awaiting paint and tools ready for action. The children had already pulled out their brushes, splattering bright colors across a large canvas. It felt surreal, both daunting and exhilarating. With each stroke, she hoped to unearth their father's soul from the depths of their collective grief. Yet, doubt whispered in her mind, competing with the enthusiasm radiating from Jack and Emily. "Are we really ready for this?" she muttered under her breath, her heart tightening at the thought of opening themselves up to the world. What if no one understands? Jack looked up, his innocent confidence disarming her. "Mom, Dad did it because he loved it. If we show people his work, we'll be sharing his love too. Right?" His words stirred something deep within her, a flicker of determination igniting with their shared conviction. A memory surfaced, the way Tom's eyes lit up when he painted, the satisfaction that seemed to wash over him as colors cascaded onto the canvas. She felt a push to honor that joy, to amplify it beyond their family confines. The atmosphere shifted as they began layering colors, the rhythmic sound of brushes on canvas transforming their hesitations into a creative storm. Her children embodied youthful fearlessness, yet she lingered on the edge of uncertainty. Each stroke felt like a challenge to her own limits. Could she truly immerse herself in this as they embraced the artistic spirit of their father? With every color they mixed, she noticed her own fears emerging, the fear of rejection, of vulnerability, and of judgment. A chaotic dance of self-doubt kept intruding, whispering reminders of all the what-ifs. And yet, the growing bond between them, a sense of purpose in expressing their collective grief, demanded her attention. The act of creating felt like an emancipation, a rebellion against a silence built on loss. As they worked, the doorbell chimed unexpectedly. A wave of anxiety washed over her, stirring thoughts of the outside world that felt so detached from their intimate endeavor. Who was stepping into this sacred space? She glanced at Jack and Emily, both red-faced and breathing hard with exhilaration, and decided she couldn't let her nerves overshadow their moment. "Let us see," she said, masking her reservations, and opened the door to find Mrs. Henderson, their elderly neighbor. The timid smile on her face quickly faded as she noticed the splashes of paint on Margaret's shirt, the chaos behind her. I just wanted to drop this off," she said, holding a plate of cookies awkwardly. "I saw the light on." "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson." "Come in," Margaret invited, her voice cheerier than she felt. She stepped aside, nervous about drawing attention away from the project but equally aware of the importance of community. As Mrs. Henderson entered, her eyes widened at the budding artwork. "Oh, this is beautiful," she exclaimed. "Are you showcasing any of this?" Margaret's heart raced at the prospect presented to her. "We're working on something for your family," she replied, her mind swirling with possibilities. "It's more of a tribute." But even as she spoke, a renewed panic gripped her. Could she expose their grief to criticism? Would Mrs. Henderson's enthusiasm translate into acceptance from others? The neighborhood had whispered secrets bound in loss and pain. She wondered just how much of Tom's story she was prepared to share, a story threaded through loss, creativity, and the choice to face vulnerability. Mrs. Henderson's expression softened, understanding washing over her features. "I think it's wonderful. Art holds tremendous healing power. Just remember, the truth of your feelings is what matters." Margaret nodded, trying to absorb the weight of the words. The ruthlessness of honesty that lay beneath them echoed in her mind. It was both a balm and a burden. The fear settled, a mixture of confusion and clarity promising to evolve the more they ventured forward. "Thank you," Margaret said finally, the weight lightened just a bit. Yet, the duality of emotions gnawed at her. Would sharing this truth bring them closer as a family, or would it expose wounds that were still fresh? Driven by compulsion, Margaret mentally prepared herself for the journey ahead, an artist herself in the making. The commitment to transform pain into art was only the first step. What awaited them, as they ventured deeper into the world of expression, tethered by love and the looming specter of judgment? Would the depth of their emotions empower or paralyze them? Margaret felt the anticipation mingling with trepidation as she stepped back to gaze at the canvas, wondering if they would summon the courage to unveil their family's truth, even as it vibrated against the threads of societal expectation. The call of authenticity beckoned, and she had to choose whether to break free or remain contained. What truths lay waiting in the uncharted territories of their art? Margaret returned to her easel. The colorful chaos swirling before her now echoed the complexities of grief that enveloped them. The vibrant colors she had mixed suddenly felt like a battleground, teeming with pent-up emotions, yearning for release. She squeezed the brush tightly, wondering if each stroke would unlock something profound, or merely expose the raw wounds hiding beneath the surface. The question lingered: was she brave enough to venture into the unknown? As the brush met the canvas, she hesitated. The morning's interaction with Mrs. Henderson replayed in her mind, each word digging deeper into her consciousness, igniting fear but also stirring curiosity. What if she poured herself into this, laid her heart bare? The thought was simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying, a dichotomy she would have to wrestle with throughout the process. Jack's laughter filled the air as he and Emily painted. Their joyous abandon painted a stark contrast against her deep-seated worries. How far could they go with this? They lived in a neighborhood marked by whispers, thick with histories of heartache. Their father's life was intertwined with the very streets they played on. Would the act of sharing his artistic legacy serve to connect them to the outside world, or would it only fracture their delicate heartstrings even more? Margaret stepped back from the canvas, her head swirling. Maybe she was the one who had to take a step forward, not just for herself, but for Jack and Emily. Remaining in the shadows of fear would only reinforce the uncertainty clouding this project. If they were to honor Tom's memory authentically, she had to embrace the turmoil that accompanied truth. Those fragments of joy intermingled with their sorrow. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of paint, and a new resolve blooming within her. They had dealt with loss, it was time to address their grief creatively. She had to channel that potent mix of joy and sorrow into art and prove to herself that authenticity could indeed hold power. "Let us paint what we remember about Dad," she suggested, her voice steady but infused with vulnerability. Jack and Emily paused, brushes hovering in midair. Their eyes brightened, caught by the invitation to share stories rather than just colors. Margaret continued with renewed energy, "Let's each choose a memory or a feeling we have about him. We'll encapsulate it on the canvas." Jack, inspired, spoke first. "I remember how he always painted in the backyard. He'd sing songs while he worked, and the entire garden felt alive with his laughter." He immediately started mixing greens and yellows. Emily naturally followed suit, recalling, "He would pretend to be a pirate and make up stories while we painted. It was the best." She dipped her brush into blue and made sweeping strokes like waves, channeling her childhood imagination. Margaret felt the walls of doubt disassemble around her. Their reminiscences did not just paint their father's image, they were recreating the essence of the man he was. It was a declaration, a mission to embrace their grief while celebrating it through vivid expression. As they collaborated, the air fizzed with creative tension. Memories flowed, bouncing around them like vibrant sparks. The canvas transformed into a tapestry woven with laughter and heartfelt sadness. This became not just an artistic undertaking but an exploration of loss to connect, to heal, and ultimately, to honor Tom. Margaret noticed her children's colors meshing together with hers, creating unexpected harmonies. They were teaching her just as much as she was teaching them, unveiling hidden layers of connection she hadn't realized existed. Yet amidst this burgeoning togetherness, an unsettling thought pricked her conscience. What to do when the moment came to share this heartfelt representation with others? What consequences would follow? Would they see the beauty, or would it provoke pity and judgment? As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue across their artwork, the gravity of their choices settled in Margaret's chest. The truth of their emotional landscape lay laid bare across the canvas in vivid brushstrokes. With every moment that ticked by, she could feel the shields she had built begin to wear away. The choice to bare their souls not only transformed the canvas but also the bonds between them. But what awaited Margaret when they crossed the boundary from private creation to public exposure? The impending confrontation with the outside world loomed closer, stirring both excitement and fear within her. With every layer of paint, the stakes grew higher. The moment was approaching when she would have to embody vulnerability, sharing their story fully. But would that brave choice lead to liberation, or leave them straddling the rift between agony and acceptance? Margaret faced the canvas. The next step had to be deliberate, no turning back. What awaited them on the other side of this emotional precipice? The answers began to swirl in the colors surrounding her, each hue a facet of their shared experience, compelling her to make a choice yet to be defined. Margaret stood before the canvas, the weight of her choices pressing down on her chest like an anchor. Each brushstroke felt increasingly like a leap into the abyss, a plunge into unexplored depths. Fear coiled tightly in her stomach as she imagined the revelations that would emerge once their work reached the world outside their secluded retreat. A sudden rush of warmth washed over her, ignited by the shared memories still swirling in the air, energizing her spirit. With her heart pounding in rhythm with the ticking clock, she turned to her children, who were absorbed in their vibrant creations. Jack's laughter cut through her turmoil, a reminder that joy still resided in their hearts, mingled with the melancholy that crept into their lives like an uninvited guest. "We're making something beautiful," she whispered to herself, the mantra grounding her in a moment she realized could very well define their paths forward. A burst of clarity struck her when she caught sight of an unfinished section on the canvas. It transformed into a blank slate, but this time to Margaret, it symbolized opportunity rather than a void. What would she add? What story would she tell? She envisioned a lush garden scene, perhaps, filled with abstract flowers symbolizing their father's vibrant spirit. She might paint swirling reds and purples to reflect his warmth and passion for life. As she mixed the colors, their significance swelled within her: red for love, purple for creativity, the very essence of Tom that she wanted to weave through their artwork. In those moments, her uncertainty began to dissolve. She realized that this artwork wasn't merely an act of remembrance, it was a revival of family ties, an invitation to step out of the shadows of grief towards a shared legacy. "Can we include his favorite tree?" Jack asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "You know, the one he painted every fall?" It was as if he instinctively understood that their act of creation linked them to Tom's memory, crafting a bridge from past to present. Margaret felt the warmth spread again. This time it wasn't just the weight of grief but a blossoming sense of agency. "Absolutely, let us paint that tree," she nodded, her voice trembling with the excitement of newfound freedom. As they worked, Margaret's mind danced with illuminating thoughts. Was she finding her voice again? Not just as an artist, but as a mother and as a woman? In this creative space, she wasn't just reflecting the past, she was reclaiming her narrative, each stroke a movement toward healing, her truths intermingled with the laughter of her children. Yet doubts returned, echoing louder against this newfound resolve. What would they say when it was revealed to the world? Would they call her brave or foolish? The prospect of judgment loomed, darkening the edges of the vivid colors they were weaving together. She bit the inside of her cheek, her brush hovering for a moment. The thought of others peering in their stares, the questions, the pity sent a shiver through her. But then she recalled the laughter, the stories shared, and the raw emotion they poured into the work. There was a power in vulnerability, she decided, a strength found in truth. If her family could embrace their art and each other, couldn't she stand proudly beside them, defiant in her authenticity? The sun began to set, casting an ethereal glow across the canvas, illuminating their collaboration with a soft golden light. It felt like a moment suspended in time, a chrysalis moment filled with both beauty and uncertainty. This was the transformation they sought to weave together, their joys and sorrows into a singular expression of love. But even as possibilities swirled, a heavy series of thoughts pressed against her resolve. Was it enough to simply create, or should they prepare for the next step? Was sharing this piece with others the culmination of their work or simply the beginning of a new set of challenges? The vibrant colors merged together on the canvas, yet an ominous question lingered at the edges of her mind. Would this art reveal the heartwarming truths of their father's legacy, or would it uncover wounds they weren't ready to face? Margaret stood still, brush poised above the canvas, as the evening enveloped them in silence. Her breath hitched, a million questions demanding answers and excitement mixing with trepidation. In the quiet moment, she realized that whatever path lay ahead, she was on the brink of a personal reckoning, a revelation just waiting to be painted. Would they dare to fully unveil the heart of their family story together? As she finally lowered her brush, the canvas awaited its next chapter. A new day was approaching, and with it, the possibility of exposure, the heartbeat of their journey. What awaited them on the other side? The answers promised to be as colorful and complex as the work they created. Margaret sighed deeply, releasing the tension that had built up in her chest, but only momentarily. The canvas before her was alive, pulsating with emotions, yet the feeling of vulnerability danced ominously at the edges of her mind. The sun dipped lower, its light gleaming through the studio windows like an audience eagerly anticipating a show. What was she truly ready to reveal, not just to others, but to herself? That night, as they prepared dinner, her thoughts unfurled around the family table. Jack and Lucy recounted their day, their voices vibrant with tales of their artistic endeavors. The kitchen was filled with the distinct aroma of dinner, sautéed vegetables mingled with spices, but Margaret couldn't fully let go of the burden sitting upon her heart. Every slice of onion and simmering pot felt like it was functioning in a parallel universe, while her internal dialogue raged on. "Mom?" Jack's voice broke through her thoughts. "Are we really going to show our painting to everyone?" The question hung in the air, spiraling her thoughts into a deeper introspection. Was she prepared for the scrutiny that would accompany their revelation? It's a decision we could discuss," she replied, feeling the weight of responsibility press even heavier upon her. How could she protect her children from the judgments of others when she was uncertain herself? After dinner, they returned to the studio, candles flickering against the encroaching darkness. The vibrant colors on the canvas were their refuge, yet Margaret felt like an imposter staring at a family heirloom that wasn't quite ready to be picked up. She began to unravel the threads of her fear, reciting promising affirmations in her mind, but self-doubt clawed back with a vengeance. What if the world saw her pain and responded with indifference or misunderstanding? Or worse, what if they felt pity? As Jack slopped paint together, immersed in his own world, Margaret hesitated to join him. Each brushstroke by her children was imbued with innocence, yet as she dipped her brush into the colors, hers felt burdened with sentiment. Drawing deep on her resolve, she released a trembling breath. She needed to confront this fear, or it might shackle their creative project before it even began. "You know, the hardest part is showing our art to the world," she started, turning to face her children. Jack glanced up, intrigued. "I guess I'm scared of what they might say. But if we let them see what we've created together, we might also invite them to understand Dad the way we do." Lucy, with her head cocked, pondered this. "But isn't that what art is? Sharing how we feel?" At that moment, Margaret realized the distinction. Art was indeed about connection. It wasn't merely self-expression for her alone, it was a shared language rooted in love and loss. How much she had underestimated their journey. Every color they added to the canvas represented not only their father's spirit but also their determination to lift themselves above fear. A flicker of determination ignited within her. "Yes, you're right. Maybe sharing it, taking that chance, could help others who might feel the way we do." This conversation ignited a flood of memories and fresh ideas. What had once felt like uncertainty shifted to the thrill of purposefulness. The idea of gathering with others and confronting the world as a united front sparked a change in her psyche. She could see their creation as not just a tribute but as an invitation to dialogue, a connection to others who had faced grief, building an unexpected community of shared experiences. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. As the night deepened, and Jack and Lucy helped clean up, Margaret felt the swell of emotions: fear, excitement, hope twisting together again in her mind. Tomorrow would usher in the day where everything would change. No longer could she cling to the shadows of doubt, the journey had already begun. With newfound resolve, she glanced once more at the canvas, no longer merely a collection of colors, but a tapestry of their family's legacy in the making. What awaited was not just an artistic reflection but a confrontation with their truth. But as she began to feel empowered by this vision, a haunting doubt whispered in her mind. Would they be ready for the reactions, the conversations their art could elicit? With a heart full of both dread and anticipation, she took a deep breath. It was time to step into the light. What awaited them beyond the brush strokes lay densely woven amidst the fear of unveiling a heart-wrenching truth. And it would demand every ounce of strength and vulnerability they possessed. Could they face the emotional storm this revelation would certainly incite? The next morning, Margaret awoke with the feeling that the horizon was painted with promise, yet foreboding lingered beneath the surface. Would exposing this part of their lives deepen their resolve or plunge them into despair? The unfolding awaited. As dawn broke, Margaret felt a surge of energy coursing through her, underpinned by the familiar thrum of anxiety. The canvases stood before her like sentinels, their vibrant colors and raw emotions an invitation she wasn't fully prepared to accept. Today wasn't just any day, it would mark their first venture into revealing their shared artistry, a connection to a past woven with both joy and sorrow. The stakes had never felt so high. In the quiet hum of the morning, the world outside her window seemed to move at a different pace. The leaves rustled with an enthusiasm that felt foreign to her inner turmoil. The day had arrived, and the prospect of showing their work loomed like a shadow. Could the art they created together, a reflection of loss, transcend their hidden fears? She took a step back from the emotional tornado swirling within her. What if their art, meant to be a bridge to understanding, also became a mirror that reflected their own vulnerabilities? The ringing in her ears was almost unbearable with the weight of unspoken truths. Jack and Lucy woke to find their mother nestled among the paint tubes and brushes, still contemplating. "Mom," Jack called, excitement etched on his face. "I can't wait to show everyone. It's going to be great." His optimism was infectious, yet it pulled her deeper into uncomfortable positions where she couldn't hide. "Great," she echoed, her voice a whisper against the vigor radiating from her children. She forced a smile. Absolutely great. They gathered around the breakfast table, but Margaret's thoughts drifted. Her mind swirled with the image of the finished canvas, a testament to their shared grief and love, but it was the act of unveiling it that gnawed at her. She could feel the impending weight of judgment crawling under her skin. The idea of outsiders' interpretations added another layer of vulnerability. Would they see the struggle, the pain, or simply a collection of colors? While her children planned the details of their presentation, Margaret couldn't suppress the growing sense of dread. In the democratic spirit of childhood optimism, Jack said, "We should invite everyone." Lucy chimed in with a chorus of support, which sent anxiety rocketing through Margaret's spine. "Yes. Let us make it a big moment," her daughter beamed. Forcing herself back to the present, Margaret shattered the illusion of safety within their discussion. "We have to consider what people will think, how they might respond." Her insistence cut through the excitement as if a damper had been placed on their eagerness. The words tumbled from her mouth, yet deep down, Margaret wrestled with the very same thoughts that kept her paralyzed. Was she acting out of love or fear? Was she instinctively guarding them against potential heartache when perhaps unveiling their soul was the very thing they needed? This morning was not merely about their art, it felt like they were staring directly into the eyes of public perception. "Mom." Jack's hopeful voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. "If we do this together, we can handle anything. We're a team." The truth struck her like a jolt of electricity. Perhaps this moment wasn't just a reveal, it was also a chance for fortitude, their first steps into a world that had always felt out of reach. If she allowed her children to embrace the possibilities of their art, wasn't she, too, obliged to relinquish her tight grip on fear? With resolve sparking in her chest, Margaret slowly nodded. "You're right. We are a team." The words came forth, each syllable an internal leap of faith. They spent the rest of the morning preparing, laughter intertwined with contemplation, doubts began to dissipate, yet still, the question loomed larger with every brushstroke: would their truth be embraced or rebuffed? As the evening approached, an undeniable sense of urgency unfurled in her, a need to confront her fears directly, not only for her children but for herself as well. They gathered the paintings and set them out for display, each masterpiece elaborating stories buried in layers of color, sentiment, and secrecy. Margaret's heart raced as reality settled around her, amplified by a palpable energy that was both grave and exhilarating. They had created something extraordinary, and it was time to face whatever awaited them with the dignity only raw honesty could instill. But as she looked around, anxiety clawed back at her. Could they withstand the reactions that awaited them? The moment drew closer, with every heartbeat feeling like a countdown to an impending revelation. The doorbell echoed into the dimming sunlight, signaling the arrival of their guests, and a cascade of emotions ready to tumble free, bringing with them the promise of either validation or unexpected turbulence. Margaret stood, breathless and unsteady, staring at the door. With her children by her side, would they stand united against the tide of vulnerability, or would it wash over them, leaving them gasping for air? Reality loomed just beyond the threshold. It was time to confront what they had created and who they had become. Margaret stood at the center of the room, heart pounding, surrounded by a sea of vibrant canvases, each stroke capturing their shared grief, love, and the essence of who Tom had been. Today was not merely an exhibition but the culmination of their journey, a bridge between their loss and the vibrant legacy Tom had left behind. As the door swung open and the first guests entered, she felt a jolt of anticipation mixed with trepidation. Families filled the space, drawn not just by curiosity but by the connection to Tom. They lingered over the canvases, tentatively reaching out to touch the colors. Margaret observed the reactions unfold, admiration and understanding twinkling in their eyes. She felt a rush of empowerment sweep over her, the fear that had once bound her now shifted into a deep-seated pride. This was a celebration of Tom's life and their family's transformation, a synthesis of vulnerability and strength. "Mom, I think they really like it," Jack exclaimed, his excitement palpable as he pointed to a small cluster of guests engaged in animated conversation about one of the paintings. It depicted a sprawling garden, reminiscent of their backyard on bright summer days. Lucy's eyes sparkled as she overheard snippets of compliments. With each passing moment, the gallery began to hum with connections. Tom's spirit danced through the room with every shared laugh and tear, his legacy radiating through those who had come to pay their respects. Each canvas spoke to a piece of their collective journey, capturing not just their memories but also their dreams for the future. As the evening progressed, an older gentleman approached, his eyes soft with understanding. "I knew Tom," he began, his voice deeply resonant. "He had a true gift, and it's wonderful to see this side of him celebrated so beautifully." Margaret felt tears prick at her eyes. It was validation not just for her husband, but for each step they had taken towards healing. "Thank you," she managed, the weight of gratitude filling her heart. In that moment, she understood, they were not just sharing their art, they were inviting others into their world, unveiling their experiences, their sorrow woven with joy. Each reaction from their guests became a testament to the courage it took to confront grief openly. Emboldened, she called Jack and Lucy to her side, gesturing towards the guests spreading across the room. "Look what we've done together. Because of your brave hearts, Dad's story lives on." Their eyes gleamed with pride, mirroring the strength she had found within herself. Yet, amid the praise and laughter, a juxtaposition flickered at the edge of her awareness, the discomfort of vulnerability that might arise. What if some couldn't understand? A nagging doubt, but as the voices rose in shared storytelling, it quieted to a hum. Margaret recognized this evening was far more than a showcase of art. It was a cathartic fusion of love, memory, and resilience that promised to forge connections deeper than misunderstanding could sever. As the night unfolded into a tapestry of shared experiences, a hush settled over the crowd as they directed their attention to a particular canvas. It featured a tree, vast and deep-rooted, a tribute to Tom's unwavering strength. Conversations grew, images sparking forgotten tales, each guest contributing their threads of memory into the fabric of a greater narrative. "Mom," Jack leaned in, his voice low with awe, "look at how happy they are. They see Dad in the art." Margaret's heart swelled. Jack was right, every piece echoed not only Tom's life but also their journey of overcoming the often paralyzing grip of grief. They had transformed their sorrow into something beautiful, an offering of connection. In that moment, her fears shattered entirely. They had taken the leap from silent grieving to a powerful assertion of identity. The scholarship, the gallery, the stories, it was all about building a legacy. Having faced her fears, she understood that this journey had transformed her, solidifying her place not only as a mother but as an advocate for her family's narrative. As she surveyed the room, each face illuminated with appreciation and understanding, she recognized the undeniable truth: Margaret had fundamentally transformed. The feelings of inadequacy that had once consumed her receded, replaced by a sense of solid confidence. She had accomplished what she had feared most. She had shared her family's truth and in doing so, found a deeper connection to herself. The gallery concluded, but the journey continued. They would carve out their path forward, one filled with art, remembrance, and community. Together, they'd honor the legacy of Tom, sparking conversations about love, loss, and the power found in shared experience. In that moment of profound realization, Margaret knew this wasn't the end, but a glorious new chapter. Here, in the warmth of community and creativity, she stood proud, heart open, ready to embrace whatever awaited them next. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.